Now, before this break, we were discussing that I've got 7 points to elaborate the possibility, exploring all the avenues, that how that handshake that will occur in 6 to 12 months from now. So preconditions, they have to be met before that. So like forgiving the unforgivable. So that has to take place. And the first, we discussed that internationalizing the Haramani Sharif and through a consortium approach of all the Muslim nations. Second point I'm coming towards. A couple of months ago, when the Saudis, they were allocating funds towards their next defense budget, their defense spending for the fiscal year 2015 and 16. So they said that, we have seen the United States has reduced their defense budget in the last 4 years from $760 billion down to in the range of $600 billion. So they are doing it. A lot of austerity is going on at the Pentagon, at the State Department for that. But the Saudis, on the contrary, 2 months ago, they divulged that instead of reducing their budget, they would be increasing their budget in the next 5 years to the range of 27%. So previously they were spending like 49.5% in the fiscal year 2014 and 15 and 15 and 16, and now add 27% from there. So their next budget would be $52 billion for 2016 and 17, and year 2020, 5 years from now, it would be $67 billion. So looking at that, my next point, I call it in my wish list, is that if the Saudis, out of that staggering amount of budget, astronomical cost of maintaining defense, but defense against whom? So that's the question. So that is another precondition. If I have to write the script for the rubber, I would say 50% of your annual defense spending should go to 42 poor Muslim nations in Africa, Far East, and elsewhere. And if they give $1 billion per year to these $42 billion per year, I tell you, their national security, their internal security, and external, their external interests, they would be ensured much more powerfully, which United States or their neighboring mentor Israel, their defense forces, they cannot ensure that. So that is another area. What do you think on that?
Well, look, insofar as military budgets are concerned, Saudi regime, as you were alluding in your discussion, was who are they buying these toys for? What kind of defense is there? Is it to bomb a country like Yemen? Because there's no threat to Saudi. Iran is never likely to attack Saudi Arabia. There's no reason for it to do so. And when you talk about defense budget, it's really, at the end of the day, Ijaz Bhai, whether it's Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, or any of the developing countries that buy armament, is really to support the Western armament industry at the end of the day. The military industrial complex, as Eisenhower called it, because that runs the United States. Even when you were talking about US military budget reducing from 700 billion to 600, still the US budget is the largest, even if you put China, Russia, India, many of the countries together, they don't spend that much money on military hardware or military budget as USA does. But what happens is that countries like Britain, countries like France, USA, and other Western nations,
Germany, Italy,
which are even a small country like Sweden, even a country like Sweden, although Sweden stopped, decided not to sell certain military equipment to Saudi Arabia late last year. So a lot of employment is created, a lot of equipment is sold, perhaps equipment that was redundant and wasn't going to be used. It's, all the economic term of dumping on developing countries. So the military industrial complex dumps the products which may not be that much important in their own armory to countries like Saudi Arabia. Because what happens? Look, at the end of the day, they don't have the trained manpower to use this equipment. The equipment sits, whether they are planes, tanks, whatever you like to call it, sit in the desert rotting away, and they're not utilized. At the end of the day, they're just sort of big toys which are bought to increase the testosterone level of these octogenarian rulers of Saudi Arabia. Nothing more than that.
My next third point is that awarding $1 million each who perished in these two accidents. One was, both were man-made accidents, negligence, the crane fall, and the stampede at Mina. Criminal events, criminal incidents.
Yes.
So they should pay $1 million each. So that would still be under $3 billion, even if you pay $1 million to the family of the one who perished, and you pay $500,000 to the one who was critically injured. So that's still, the figure is still under $3 billion. So they should pay straight away. They should pay it, I think, in the next week or so. And then they should start inquiry, and inquiry should be international inquiry. All the Muslim countries, they should be involved in that. All the Muslim nations, 57 Muslim nations, they sent their pilgrims to that holy land. So obviously they should be involved in that. So are you happy with $1 million for those who were killed and $500,000 for those who were critically injured?
Well,
or you want more than that? What's the tag on you?
Well, look, at the end of the day, it's very difficult to sort of put a value to a human person. If you look at what happened in Lockerbie, there, Britain demanded so much money.
We carry on with that debate. We have got a caller. Yes, please. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Welcome, salam. I got a few questions for you and your guest.
Yeah. First of all, your name, please.
My name is Azam Khan. I'm ringing from Peterborough.
Azam Khan?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, brother.
I got a question for you. Number one, you're talking about bringing something in politics that be fair, this is Britain, and everybody knows who's doing what and who. Iran interferes in Lebanon. Iran interferes in Syria. Iran interferes in Iraq. Iran interferes in Yemen. Where does Saudi Arabia interfere? Iran even interfered in Pakistan, sending very cheap diesel and oil through Balochistan to disrupt the government. Second thing it is, you talking about the people who died in recently Makkah or Mana. The question is coming out from Saudi government. You are exactly talking what the Iranian government saying is that they should protest, they should apologize, they do what. This is you bringing religions into politics. Second thing it is, you are always, this channel, always protecting Iran, saying Iranian government words and Iranian policies. Iran, before this revolution, was very, very civilized people. We used to go through Iran in Pakistan. And there was a Shah's government. We know it was brutal. Everybody knows. Nobody is perfect. Not in this, that even Iranian government is not. They are brutal. You can talk to Syrian government. They are brutal. You talk to government in Iraq. They are brutal. You never ever realize whenever Iran tried to sabotage the Sunnis in Iraq. Yemen was peaceful country, poor country. Who's going to pay for them all the damage and the damage in Syria and damages in Iraq? This was only policy of Iranian government bring the Americans into this country. In the end, they never developed a nuclear weapon. And now, after so many years, so much sanction, the people suffering, what do they achieve? Nothing. It's better to be living a life than play with the multi or biggest country. This was Iran, its doings against Saddam Hussein in war earlier on, and West was 100% was behind Iraq, and Iran nearly collapsed. How many million people they have more to die? You have guessed yourself How many people died in Iran-Iraq war? You talked about 400-500 people died. I was in the same position in 2004 when there was 200 something people died. We was coming from in the middle road. I don't know exactly where, but people was coming from our left-hand side. And the people in the middle, there was weak people like women, they was carrying trolleys, everything. A couple of our friends died in 2004. And we was pushed that much, and we was walking over the bodies. And if we look down, could have died ourselves.
Thank you, Brother Azam. We got other callers on the line. I highly respect your point of view. Obviously, we are here to agree to disagree. Definitely, I value your comments. And this is the beauty of our program, Brother Shabir, that we invite the diversity, we invite divergent opinion, and we welcome. And please keep calling us in future, and we are thankful for your call. Now, would you take some of his comments?
Look, it's abundantly clear, and I am very open to discussion on this matter. In fact, I was appearing on Islam Channel about a year ago, and there was one Sunni Sheikh who was the other guest from Cricklewood, and he was regurgitating exactly the 3 points that Brother Azam has raised, saying it was Iran who...
Sorry, we have another caller. Yes, Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
What's your name, brother?
Azhar Khan.
Sorry?
Azhar Khan.
Azhar Khan. Yes, brother.
Yeah, it's my decision like different, you know. Look Libya, look Palestine, look Syria, look Iraq, and I thinking about this ideology only about public killing mass destruction. Everybody taking airplane, but I did never see ICS we died or Daesh we died. I never see that. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, brother. Another good question, another good comment. And we always welcome our callers, and they can say whatever they like, remaining in decency, and which they are, and we appreciate that. Yeah, carry on with the answer.
What I was saying, that this has been a propaganda, a vicious propaganda against the Islamic Revolution in Iran, because what Imam Khomeini achieved in 79 was a colossal change in thinking that occurred, because it was very clear in the early days of the revolution that, and you know, it's an interesting story for our earlier caller, the first caller,
Brother Azam,
to and I want to relate that to our other viewers and listeners, Brother Ijaz, is that the Secret Service in Iran at that time, run by Raza Shah Pahlavi, his what is the name? Not Mossad is the Israeli one, the Iranian Secret Service at that time, head came to Imam Khomeini. He said, "Why, you're a religious man? Why are you involved in trying to take the regime off?" And he posed 3 questions to Imam Khomeini. He said, "Politics is for bad people, corrupt people. You're a religious man, you're in a seminary, you're pious. Why do you want to get your hands murkied by getting involved in politics?" Secondly, he said, "Look, the revolution that you're going to bring or want to get rid of the Raza Shah is going to be a Shia government." And thirdly, he said that it will be seen as an Iranian revolution. So Imam Khomeini answered 3 questions in a brilliant way. He said that, look, at the end of the day, if you think politics is for bad people, then why are you involved in it? You know, you should get out of it. So that sort of closed the question on that. Secondly, Imam Khomeini's answer on that, it will be seen as a Shia revolution. He said, our revolution is for the oppressed people. You see, that was the beauty of Imam Khomeini's word. He didn't use the word Shia, he didn't use the word Sunni, that it was a revolution for the oppressed people, for the Mustadafin, against the oppressor.
Yeah.
So whether oppression is taking place against the Christians, Muslims will be supporting the oppressed Christians.
Yeah.
If the oppression is taking place against the Hindus in India, the Islamic Revolution will support those oppressed people. If oppression is taking place against Sunnis by other Sunnis, Iran will support that. That's the reason why Hamas is supported by Iran. It's not interference, you know. By no imagination can one call it interference, because Hamas and the Palestinian people have been the most oppressed for the last 65 years. My brother who phoned, who has been supporting Hamas? Has Saudi Arabia been supporting Hamas? Has Qatar been supporting Hamas? Has Kuwaiti regime been supporting Hamas? They come and squander their dollars in the casinos of Las Vegas and London, and at the same time, we as Muslims are supposed to be supporting the Saudi regime and saying that Iran is interfering in other nations. I mean, that's just, I wouldn't say it's an outrageous comment, but I think it requires some deeper thinking on the part of our brothers who think in that manner that Iran is interfering. Now, insofar as the war between Iraq and Iran is concerned, who started the war? We all know very clearly that Saddam Hussein started the war. And there was a good cartoon in the Guardian when 2003 Mr. Blair was trying to hoodwink the world into thinking that in 45 minutes Saddam could destroy London. And there was a cartoon in the Guardian with Jack Straw, and so the person in the cartoon asked Jack Straw, how do you know that Saddam has got these chemical weapons? And Jack Straw is reading, I have the invoice.
Oh my God.
So, you know, that really...
What a research.
You know, Jack Straw, I have the invoice, therefore we've supplied it to Saddam. So the reality is that all the Western powers were supporting Saddam, and Saudis were paying money to Saddam at that time so that Iran could be attacked. And they thought that because it was a revolution, and by imposing such a war on Iran, Iran will completely be destroyed and the revolution will no longer be there. It would be just a footnote in the history of time. But the reality is that 8-year war lasted, and Saddam used chemicals in Halabja. I was in London at that time when the chemical victims of Halabja came into London. Other Iranian soldiers who were on the war front, they came. I mean, Robert Frisk wrote an article on this particular. He said that he traveled from the war zone to Tehran on a train, and there was chemical smell in the train because there was so much chemical used.
We move on to our next point, and obviously we welcome all the comments from people. So
absolutely.
We move on. The next topic is that Saudis are spending between $25 to $30 billion per year on building skyscrapers, big buildings that portray them as the 21st century Colossus of Rhodes. So one recent thing is, I mean, they can do everywhere, that's their own country, but when it comes to Haram-e-Sharifan, such big skyscrapers should not be in the vicinity of Medina and Mecca, because those two holy shrines, they belong to the Muslims. They don't belong to the Saudis alone, they belong to the Muslims. And they should take some sort of no objection certificates from the 57 Muslim nations that, okay, now we are planning to build a 45-storied hotel, which would be the biggest hotel of the world, with 10,000 rooms, and 1,000 rooms on 5 floors out of 45, they would be reserved for the Saudi Istikhbarat Ulama, the intelligence. So they are building that, Abraj Kudai, that's the name of the hotel. So spending about, they say so, but they will end up like Millennium Dome as it kept on adding to the expenses. So it would end up like $5 to $6 billion. And after that, what would they achieve? Now, if you are, so all the rooms, they are booked for 2017 when they would be in operation. That would be in operation. So if you are occupying a room there, and that window opens to the Haram, and you are on the say 39th floor, and Haram is at least 25 times below your feet. So if you are bowing before Haram, in the direction of Haram, bowing before Allah, and you are still, your feet are above that Haram. So where do is this another iconoclastic demonstration of a very narrow-minded nation ruled by a crew of maniacs?
Well, not just maniacs, I think complete psychopaths, because really, if you look at what happened in Mina, was a psychopathic sort of...
So we have Brother Azam again on the phone. Okay. Yeah, please carry on.
Yeah, I mean, why I use the word psychopathic is that what's happening in Yemen, it's only a psychopath who would go and sort of bomb civilian places rather than military sort of installations. So they've been killing ordinary people. No less worse than what the Israelis did in Gaza. On many occasions, they're killing ordinary people there, and look, Brother Ejaz, at the end of the day, building all these high-rise towers in Makkah and Medina, it's actually one of the tragedies of all this sort of blink that's taking place in Saudi Arabia is becoming almost like Las Vegas. You know, you go to glamorous buildings, you spend money, and these days, Hajj is supposed to be for people who have istitaat from the Islamic perspective. But that doesn't mean, they have to be multimillionaires to go to Hajj. These days, I think what is costing £7,000-8,000 to go for Hajj, even for middle class families, is becoming awfully difficult to go for Hajj. So it's becoming more and more restricted. So by the time, in the next 5 years, if it's going to cost £20,000 to go to Hajj, how many people earn that kind of salary in 1 year in the UK? And out of that salary, how much they have to save for how many years? It would be almost like someone in the developing world saves a whole lifetime to be able to go for Hajj. Only the 1% rich Muslims would be able to visit Hajj. And perhaps some people may argue that that's what Islam wants, that only the rich and the wealthy should go to Hajj. Yes, I agree with that, rich and the wealthy. But the middle classes should also be able to go for Hajj at a reasonable cost, because it shouldn't just be an exclusive domain of the super rich. Then what is the difference between a capitalist ethos of that, valuing wealth more than anything else? And the other point I think that perhaps you should, if you haven't considered in your 7 points, is to restrict people going to Hajj more than perhaps twice, because there are many people who go 5, 6, 7, 8 times to Hajj, and I don't think it adds any value to their person by going to Hajj so many times. Even the Prophet did only 1 Hajj. So why are we going 10 times to Hajj? People will say, no, it's my spirituality, I need to go. But okay, if you want to go, give the money to someone else.
Yeah. Now coming towards, spending $6 billion on a futuristic building like Abraj Khudai, is that much more mundane wisdom? Or spending some money providing better tentage in Mina and Arafat?
Absolutely.
There is a big businessman from the royal family who erects about 200 to 300 tents, and he lets them for $7,000 per day, per night or per day, whatever, in Arafat and Mina, and the routes leading to there. So that's again a business. Now, why doesn't whosoever conceived that idea of building high-rise buildings in Makkah and Medina? So some experiments they have been carried out in the hot countries of American continent, in Mexico, in South America and other parts, Bolivia, in Brazil, in Argentina, and some experiments they have been very successful. So for example, 2.2 million people, 2.3 million people handling them is definitely a great job. It's a colossal effort. But the thing is, providing them 8 big turbines. I was reading through that. Some people, they have advised, they have put forward their ideas to Saudi Arabia, that we would provide the cool air to as many as 1 million people, and 8 turbines providing cool air, and the people will definitely will bear with the strength, with the harshness of that temperature at 45 degrees Celsius at that time. And more money and more research and development, more money could be dedicated towards that, exploring ways and means instead of making big high-rise buildings. So this is another. So priorities are wrong, and priorities are wrong for 1400 years. So we had the Muslim caliphs, we had the Muslim rulers, political rulers. I mean, Brother Adam was saying that why we are mixing politics with religion. So if we carry on with religion, we will end up like Christianity, Judaism, or Hinduism, which is only in the books now. How many people they go to churches, to synagogues, to the temples, to the gurdwaras? But Islam is intact, because politics and ideology, they have been walking side by side for 1400 years. And all those Muslim nations, they blended politics with ideology and made the good use of that, following the path of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, Ahl Bayt, alayhimus salam. I mean, their countries are intact. Their people would not come to London and buy a car with a number plate for £7 million or $11 million. They would not send their people who carry out the despicable acts of whatever they did in Landmark and kill the person, and after 2-3 years of incarceration, go back to your country, enjoy your life. And that man was providing tents to the Hajis this year.
MashaAllah.
Prince Saud bin Abdulaziz. And this is how it's going on. The priorities are wrong. So wherever in history the Muslims they made their priorities wrong, so definitely the history never pardoned them. They are still lost in oblivion. No political model they have. They talk about democracy and where the democracy is. They talk about enlightened despotism, where despotism is, where enlightenment is. So all these things, when you separate politics from religion, then definitely what you have is a zero-sum game for the people. You have to rule the people. You have to provide all the basic necessities to the people. Democracy, rule of law, justice, and all these things. Are we getting that in Saudi Arabia? Only decapitation, only beheading the people, and crucifixion. So what do you say on that?
Well, not only in Saudi Arabia, but if you look at any of the ideologies that have been taken to Syria, to Iraq by this Daesh group, that's what they're doing. Cutting heads off. Not only cutting heads off, but playing football with the heads that they've cut. I mean, the clips are available on YouTube for anyone to see. So anyone who thinks that Saudi regime, and it really is an appeal, not myself making this appeal, but Tariq Ramadan recently made an appeal to the Muslim and especially the Sunni brothers, saying that you have to stand up and speak against the Saudi regime. You have to stand up and speak against what Daesh is doing. You have to stand up and speak against what is going wrong in the Ummah at this moment and who is doing it. Because if we are not very...
We will come to that program. I've been asked to take another break, so we take the third break, and once we come back and we will carry on with our discourse, so we take a short break.